Word on the street online has suggested that Snoop Dogg might somehow be connected to the tragedy involving Nipsey Hussle's death. For years, whispers across social media have pointed in unexpected directions, and one name that often shows up in those conversations is Big U. But here's the real question. Was this just another internet rumor, or is there something deeper behind the story that most people never looked into? Because the truth is, the theory linking Snoop Dogg to Nipsey's death didn't suddenly appear overnight. It slowly grew through viral clips, old interviews, and conversations that spread across the internet like wildfire. Before we get to the parking lot, before the shots were fired, before the courtroom drama and the final sentence, we need to talk about the rumor that kept resurfacing online. How did Snoop Dogg's name end up in a story about Nipsey Hussle's death? And what actually happened behind the scenes that day? Let me break down the timeline, because once you see how everything unfolded, the story becomes far more complicated than most people realize.
I called Nipsey, and I'm like, Nipsey, what's up? He was like, oh, what's up with it?
Nipsey answered.
Nipsey answered. He answered the phone, and I was like, I love you, cuz, or whatever like that.
Did you tell him the call you just got? Or you didn't even mention it?
I didn't mention it. And that's what me up, because my cousin is Nipsey baby mama. You get what I'm saying? So it was like, I could have probably stopped it, or it had it.
Stop what?
No, because listen, so after I talked to Nipsey, and I was like, yeah, I love you, cuz, or whatever like that, I'll see you later, or whatever. So I hung up the phone. I thought Big U gave wrong information. 30 minutes later,
the moment Nipsey Hussle was shot outside the Marathon clothing store on March 31st, 2019, the internet didn't only mourn, it also began asking questions. Social media discussions, conspiracy threads, deep dive comment sections, and late-night TikTok edits built from old interviews and surveillance clips began pointing fingers in different directions. And in some of those online conversations, one name that occasionally came up was Snoop Dogg. Not as the grieving figure people saw speaking at Nipsey's memorial in front of thousands of fans, but in some internet theories as someone who supposedly might have known something ahead of time. These claims have never been proven, but they circulated widely across platforms.
Now here's the key point. Those theories didn't actually start with Snoop directly. They started with Big U. If you follow the history and politics connected to the Rollin' 60s neighborhood in Los Angeles, Big U has long been a controversial figure in that environment. Some people describe him as a community mentor who helped guide younger generations. Others have criticized his past connections. Opinions about him are sharply divided. The online theory that spread across the internet goes something like this. Some individuals claimed Big U may have had prior knowledge of Nipsey's death. Because Snoop and Big U had known each other for years, certain conspiracy-minded commentators then suggested that Snoop might also have known something. To be clear, these claims remain allegations and internet speculation, not confirmed facts. One of the moments that fueled these discussions came from a man known as Loose Cannon, who said in an interview that Big U allegedly mentioned Nipsey being shot before the news had fully spread publicly. According to the story he told, he received a call about Nipsey's death, and when he tried calling Nipsey himself, Nipsey reportedly answered the phone. If that account were accurate, it would suggest the information might have been premature. But again, this claim has never been independently verified in court or official records. Still, once the internet saw that clip, speculation exploded. Because Snoop Dogg and Big U had known each other for decades, some people online tried connecting those dots.
The person responsible for the shooting was Eric Ronald Holder Jr., age 29, who had connections to the same neighborhood circle. On the afternoon of March 31st, 2019, Holder arrived at the strip mall with a woman he had been seeing for about a month. According to trial testimony, he stopped nearby for food and then noticed Nipsey Hussle standing outside the Marathon store. What followed, based on witness testimony and court transcripts, was a conversation that lasted roughly 4 minutes. Witnesses described the interaction as calm. There were handshakes, casual words, and no visible hostility. During that conversation, Nipsey reportedly told Holder that there had been rumors circulating that Holder might have cooperated with police in the past. In street culture, that accusation can carry serious consequences. However, witnesses later testified that Nipsey did not make the statement aggressively. Instead, he appeared to be warning him about what people were saying. Holder then asked Nipsey whether Nipsey himself had ever cooperated with authorities. The exchange ended without raised voices, and Holder walked away. Herman "Cowboy" Douglas, one of Nipsey's longtime friends who was standing nearby, later described it simply as Nipsey trying to look out for someone from the same neighborhood. Holder returned to the car where his date was waiting and sat there for several minutes. Then, according to prosecutors, events escalated.
Roughly 9 to 10 minutes later, Holder armed himself with 2 firearms, changed his shirt, and came back to the parking lot on foot. Multiple shots were fired at close range. Nipsey was struck and collapsed. 2 bystanders were also injured during the shooting. Holder fled the area but was arrested 2 days later. The question that immediately spread across Los Angeles was simple. Why did this happen? Was it about the conversation earlier? Was it jealousy? Or something deeper connected to personal history and street dynamics? During the trial, prosecutors argued that the killing was driven primarily by long-standing resentment and jealousy, not the brief conversation. The defense argued the opposite, that the accusation about cooperating with police could have triggered an intense emotional reaction. But for Cowboy, the friend who witnessed the interaction firsthand, the situation never seemed that simple. From his perspective, a short conversation didn't fully explain why someone would return with weapons and carry out such an act. That question became central during the trial. Nearly 3 years passed between the shooting and the start of the trial. Pandemic delays, court scheduling issues, and legal procedures slowed the process. When the trial finally began in June 2022 in downtown Los Angeles, one fact was not disputed: Eric Holder had fired the shots. The debate was about intent. Prosecutors argued it was premeditated first-degree murder. The defense argued it should be considered voluntary manslaughter, claiming Holder acted in the heat of the moment. The timeline became critical. The 9 to 10-minute gap between the conversation and the shooting became the main point of argument. Prosecutors said that period showed planning. The defense argued it wasn't enough time for someone to cool down from such an accusation. Before the trial even progressed far, another dramatic moment occurred. While in custody, Holder was attacked by other inmates and required medical treatment before returning to court. Once proceedings resumed, prosecutors laid out their argument clearly. Holder had time to leave the area, load weapons, change clothing, and return.
What do you think about that?
He absolutely was involved in Nipsey's situation. And people, they don't want to say it. They're scared to say it. That's fine. I'll say it for you. He was involved with the Nipsey situation. And I want to let the detectives, because they're supposed to reopen Nipsey's case. That's what I was told.
Oh, wow.
I want to let them do their work.
At one emotional moment during testimony, Cowboy expressed regret about stepping away briefly before the shooting happened. The defense attempted to describe Holder as someone overwhelmed by fear, humiliation, and emotional pressure following the accusation. They also referenced mental health struggles he had experienced in the past, although that was not formally used as a legal defense. After weeks of testimony, the jury delivered its decision on July 6, 2022. Eric Holder Jr. was found guilty of first-degree murder, along with 2 counts of attempted voluntary manslaughter and a firearms charge. The jury rejected the heat of passion argument. Outside the courtroom, many people expressed that while the verdict brought accountability, it could not repair the loss felt by the community. Nipsey Hussle had become more than just a rapper. Through businesses, investments, and mentorship programs, he had created opportunities in his neighborhood. His death left a gap that many people in Los Angeles said would be difficult to replace. On November 5, 2024, the California Court of Appeal rejected his arguments and upheld the verdict. Then, on January 16, 2025, the California Supreme Court declined to review the case. That effectively ended the legal process. Eric Holder Jr. will spend the remainder of his sentence in prison. What remains is the legacy of Nipsey Hussle. The Marathon clothing store, the businesses he launched, the mentorship programs, and the example he set for building success while reinvesting in the community. Nipsey Hussle, born Ermias Joseph S. Gatum, became a symbol of independence and long-term vision. His death created a void that no sentence can truly fill. But his music, his message, and the impact he made in Los Angeles continue to live on. If you enjoyed this video, click on any of the cards on your screen.